And welcome back. I'm Bill English, the publisher here at Bible and Business. I want to thank you for joining me again today in this episode. Today's episode is about commitment. It's one of the 10 elements that I've outlined in my book, A Christian Theology of Business Ownership, on how to build healthy partnerships. This content comes from chapter 4 in my book. But before we get going today on commitment, I'd like for you just to head over, or at least I'll invite you to head over to BibleandBusiness.com and check out the articles and the podcasts. You can also download the slides for today's episode in PDF format. I write for Christian owners and Christian business owners and Christian business leaders. And so I would just appreciate it if you would head over to Bible and Business and take a look at all that I have for you out there in my ministry site, BibleandBusiness.com. Today we're going to look at the element that builds healthy partnerships called commitment. And by commitment, what I mean is the ability to commit to doing something, to completing a task, to a value, to a process, and then be able to stick with that commitment. I want to start by just noting that simply because your partner is a Christian doesn't mean that he or she can make commitments and stick to them. The ability to make and keep a commitment is essential to maintaining and growing a partnership. So, questions you ought to ask yourself as you're looking to partner with somebody new: can they commit to something verbally and then follow through? Or do they keep forgetting about it to do it because they're so scattered, right? So let's say you're in a meeting and your partner commits to having something done by a certain date. Do they actually get it done? Or do they forget? Or do they make so many commitments that they're unable to fulfill all of them? So does he honor his commitments when made through a contract only, or does he honor his commitments when they're made verbally or in a meeting or something like that? You really need to take a look at the commitment aspect of a potential partner. Now, look, it doesn't mean that this person has to be perfect. There's been plenty of times where I've made commitments and I haven't followed through, or I was late in following through on them. Usually it's late. It's not that I never followed through. It's usually it was very late. But you want to look at the patterns. You want to look at do they generally get their work done on time, but just sometimes they don't, or how does that work? So look at their level of commitments, the number of commitments they're making, and if they're able to keep their commitments and deliver on time. Generally speaking, all of us at one time or another will have a problem keeping our commitments. So I don't want you to think that this is a hard and fast, legalistic rule here. And I think here, when it also comes to commitments, I think spouses matter. I really do. You need to consider the capacity of your potential partner's spouse to tolerate risk or compensation fluctuations and just the overall stressors of being in a partnership for a for-profit business. I just want to point out that the pillow talk between your partner or potential partners and their spouses may have a very significant impact on your partnership. And don't kid yourself. Every business in America, in the world, goes through downturns and needs to be right-sized at one time or another. Every business experiences loss of revenue and sometimes loss of net income. Your partner's ability to commit to the business and stick it out through the rocky, stressful, difficult downturns may be throttled by their spouse's tolerance for risk. So the lower the tolerance for risk in either their spouse or in your potential partner, probably the less likely it is that he or she is going to make a good partner. Very few businesses are risk-free. People like to think that everything's going to go as planned, everything's going to go well, but all business has risk. Are you able to really risk in a way where the business it can be supported by the partners during those downturns? You also need to understand that their character matters. And these are broad brush generalizations, and I get that. But look, mature characters are slow to make commitments. They don't make commitments quickly. They may be able to make decisions quickly, but significant commitments they tend to not make quickly. By the same token, immature characters will tend to make rash commitments and then live to regret it. And a lot of times immature characters not only make rash commitments, but they make a lot of them and they overcommit themselves. And then they're always behind the eight ball trying to fulfill all of the commitments that they have. So you need to take a hard look at this. If your partner has a history of making rash decisions and rash commitments, and only later understands how his or her decision and commitment affected all of the moving parts and all of the involved parties, then you really need to think twice about partnering with them. Rash decisions almost never consider the long-term effects or the effects on all the moving parts or all the people who are involved. They just make a decision based usually on one or two aspects of the situation, and then they only later think about what else they should and who else they should have considered. So, commitments. Commitments are usually are almost always decisions, I should say. Commitments are always decisions. But look at this, and look at this carefully. Are they overcommitted? Do they make rash commitments? Is their spouse able to tolerate the risk that a small business inherently has in any economic system? My warning on this is that if this person has a track record of divorces, for example, or changing jobs, for example, or starting but not completing tasks, or making rash decisions, then you really need to carefully consider whether this person has the mettle to make a commitment, to be a partner in the sense that you'll need in order to grow your business long term. So, when it comes to commitment, take time to assess your potential partner's ability to make and keep commitments. Don't assume that just because he or she is a Christian that they will be able to make and keep commitments. Not on this slide is take a look at the spouse's, if they're married, take a look at their spouse's ability to handle risk, their risk tolerance level, so to speak. And then I would just advise you to stay away from those who make rash or quick decisions and only later realize the full impact of what they committed to. Now, in our next episode on these 10 building blocks for building healthy partnerships, we're going to look at the concept and the topic of compensation within partnerships. So I hope you'll join me for that. But for today, thank you for joining me. I'm Bill English, the publisher here at Bible and Business, and I hope you go out and make it a great day. Take care.